Hi, this is Iris from Cashmere Goat in Camden, Maine, and today I'm hopping on with a tutorial about the tubular bind off. So if you want to skip this little intro and get right to the technique, I'm going to link down below to where that starts, so you'll be able to just skip right through all this talking and get right to it. All right. I think of this as this tutorial will be kind of like why does it work and how can we think about it so that maybe it's easier to remember. I'll be honest, when I first encountered this technique, and it is quite a popular technique for binding off, particularly in European patterns when there's a ribbing, it creates a beautiful finished edge. It's gorgeous. But when I first encountered it and I looked at some of the videos I was finding, I was like, whoa, that's a lot. So it's just too much. I'm not gonna do that. And that's fine, every knitter to their choice, right? But a couple of things happened to kind of make some of my own thinking about it really click recently. So the first was a little story about one of our in-person meetups at the Cashmere Goat. A knitter was sitting next to me and I glanced down in front of her and she had this note card and it said, "Cough pon, pof con." Cough pon, pof con. And I kind of giggled and I was like, "What is this cough pon, Jenny?" And she said, "Wait, what? What are you talking about? This is my reminder for my tubular bind off that I'm doing." And I was like, "Yeah, but it says cough pon on it." And she said, "Oh, well, no, what it's really saying to me is knit off, purl on, cough pon, and then purl off, knit on, pof con." And I was like, oh, that's really fun. But I'm kind of a word person. And so that sort of stuck in my mind as just sort of a silly little shorthand. And that describes the motion on, what you're actually doing with your stitches in the tubular bind off. That cough pon shorthand describes the moves. And so for this knitter, for Jenny, that really helped her. It was a shorthand, made sense to her. Great. We love to see that kind of thinking and knitters like making it work for themselves. So good. And then I also saw Stephanie Purl McPhee, who's the yarn harlot, who's amazing, who's written books, who's fabulous, who's funny. And Stephanie was talking about this approach to kind of baby steps towards the tubular bind off in terms of really demonstrating a way of thinking about it that might make it easier for some knitters to onboard into tubular bind off. Not to say that, some folks might just be ready to jump into the deep end, great. But if you're sort of like one of those people that wants to figure things out first and maybe take a baby step forward, this potentially could be for you to make it easier. So stick around and I'm gonna show this to you in just a few seconds. I'm gonna edit it, like we do. Okay, so we can see I've got a little bitty swatch here with some knit one, purl one ribbing on it. And the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is have 4 times the amount of yarn based on the distance that you're gonna be going around. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, and I'm being generous. Oops, gosh, getting stuck on everything. And then 4, and then you can see I've got like almost a whole 5, and that's because the last thing I would ever want to do is to run out of yarn on my tubular bind off, because that is a heck of a lot of work. You'll see it's slow, it's methodical, and so I do not want to run out of yarn. Definitely not. Okay, so that's going to go to the side for a minute. So we're going to talk about how the tubular bind off is actually just grafting. And this was my big brain explosion, was thinking about it like it was just grafting. Similar to how we graft a toe on a sock or at the underarm. I've got a grafting video that I will link below in the description too. But anyway, so here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna actually take these stitches and put them on 2 needles so you can see how it's just like grafting. And this is where I think for some of our new folks to tubular bind off, this might be the onboarding that you need to get the confidence to understand what is really happening. So get ready, here comes a big move. I'm gonna do this, which is take out my needle, and oh my gosh, look at these. Uh-oh, just dropped the needle on the floor. Okay. see how my stitches have sorted themselves out. So I've got knit stitches just pop into the front, and my purl stitches are pop into the back. And here's what's gonna happen. I'm going to put this on a single long circular needle. You can also use double points if that's what you've got. So I totally get it if this freaks you out, but it's gonna be fine, I promise. So with one needle, I'm gonna pick up all of my knit stitches here along the front edge, and like, it's easy. They're not falling off, it's okay. And you know, if one got a little bit folly-offy, I just like pick it up, and if it was twisted, I could fix it later, no big deal. Oh, look, there's all my front needle stitches are on my one needle. Now I'm gonna go along in the back, and I have just easy peasy picking up these guys in the back. And now voila, here are all my stitches, except for they're on 2 needles now. So the cool part is this is what like made my brain go click, which is now to me, I'm like, oh, that is a tube. I can see why this is called a tubular bind off, because if I were to just like knit around in a circle, I'd be knitting a tube. How cool is that? So light bulb, brain exploded, all good. So here we are, we're ready to start with our cough pon. So get ready for that. So when you're grafting like the toe of a sock, there's always that little setup row. And so the way to think of it is that your cough pon, and again, I'm actually reading right to left because that's how we look at the stitches. Your cough pon refers to the 2 stitches that you're going to be dealing with on the front needle, and then your poff con refers to the 2 stitches that you're going to be dealing with on your back needle. But because you always are dealing with them in these 2 pairs, you can't really do that when you're starting or when you're ending. So to begin, we have to actually start with a pon on our front needle and a con on our back needle. So our actual setup round looks something like pon con. Okay, so we're gonna set it up with pon con. And so what that looks like is on my front needle, I'm gonna pon. And so that's just put my needle in purlwise and leave the stitch on my needle. And then on my back needle, I need to con, which is put my sewing up needle on the back needle as if to knit, but also leave it on the needle. All right, so I've done my setup, and now kind of ready to get going in earnest. Okay, so I'm gonna first with the cough, and the cough means I insert as if to knit and I slide that knit stitch off. So that's knit off, and then I'm gonna do a pon. So pon means insert as if to purl, but leave it on the needle as we just did when we were doing our setup. My next step is to poff. So I'm gonna insert as if to purl and slide this baby off the needle. And I'm being a little careful at my beginning part. I'm trying to pull my yarn through a little bit gently. Like we're trying not to make this very tight at the end. So I've done my poff, and then I'm gonna insert my needle as if to knit and leave it on the needle. Now I think I split a couple stitches. I'm not gonna worry too much about that because this is our demo. And so here we go, that's my knit on. So I've done my first little bit. Next up, I'm going to cough, knit off, and then purl on. Cough pon on the front needle. And again, I'm kind of just being careful about how I pull my yarn through. We want it sort of Goldilocks, just right, not too tight. And then on the back needle, I'm poff conning. So purl off, and then knit on. There we go. And you can see why this is a slow and methodical sort of business. It's not something that I'm gonna be rushing through, especially if I'm dealing with like a sweater. So back to the front needle, I'm gonna cough, knit off, purl on, And then on the back needle, purl off, knit on, knitwise on. And we can start to see this cute little edge emerging here. This cute little edge that just sort of like rolls itself right over. All right, I'm gonna keep going and I'll speed this up so you don't have to be bored. Okay, so here we are, and I have POF-conned my way across this little swatch, and you can see I have this nice, cool looking, stretchy little bind off here. It just looks quite neat and kind of begins to just, you know, kind of your eye rolls right over to the other side. It's very cool. But now I'm at my last 2 stitches, and what do we do now? Well, if you remember, when we began, we started with a pon and started with a con. So we left those stitches on the needles. Now we're gonna do the reverse. So we're gonna actually end with a cough and with a POF. So we're going to complete this with a knit, put your needle in knitwise and slip the stitch off, and then put your needle in purlwise and slip the stitch off. And we are going to just pull that through. So that's it. It's a little funny business over here. Try to ignore that. But basically you've got the concept. It looks great, and a really easy way to kind of understand what you're doing. What you're doing with the tubular bind off is you're grafting. And simple as that. It's really cool. All right, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully this helps you feel confident in your tubular bind off. It's kind of like just a little sewn bind off, really easy. But yeah, and if you like this video, let us know down below in the comments, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our Cashmere Goat channel. Hope to see you in the shop sometime as well. Bye, happy making.